An average Canadian homeowner will make over 80 mortgage-related decisions throughout their lifetime, and all these decisions can affect how they live their daily lives, from making sure they choose the right lender to deciding on the right term, type, and rate. Mortgage-related decisions can have a tremendous impact, so making the right decisions can really count. That's why when mortgage customers are faced with having to make important mortgage decisions, they turn to mortgage brokers. Mortgage brokers offer expertise and advice, so mortgage customers can be more informed. But mortgage brokers also do a lot more. They offer their customers a one-stop shop for great rates and value-added mortgage features from their partners like First National. Mortgage brokers are also licensed and regulated professionals who have the credibility to help customers find the right mortgage, even when new mortgage rules are introduced. Mortgage brokers offer personalized service, so customers don't have to get bogged down in paperwork or feel uneasy about the status of their application. They work with partners like First National, who are also dedicated to keeping the customer experience positive and seamless. This year and in the years to come, many Canadians will be faced with having to make mortgage decisions that will affect their daily lives. They can count on mortgage brokers and their partners to help.
Good morning, friends. It is Gary Mauris from the DOC Group of Companies. It is March 10th, 2022. For those of you tuning in the West, good morning. For those of you in the East, good afternoon. I am super excited today. I'm going to take a walk down memory lane with a friend of mine, someone who has been super impactful to the city of Vancouver, but the NHL in general. My guest today is Mr. Trevor Linden. I'm going to quickly walk through some bullet points on his bio. Trevor Linden was a professional hockey player from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Trevor was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks in 1998. He had a 20-year NHL career. During that time, he played in 1,506 games, scored 409 goals, and had 557 assists. He earned the beloved nickname as Captain Canuck. He's one of Canada's most respected athletes and recognized for his leadership, his commitment, his talent, and character, both on and off the ice. He was named captain of the Vancouver Canucks in 1990, 2 years after joining the team at the incredibly young age of 21 years old, the youngest player to wear the C at that time. He represented Canada at the World Hockey Junior Championships and the Olympic Winter Games in Nagano. He won the Memorial Cup 2 times, back-to-back. In his retirement in 2008, the Canucks retired number 16. It's only one of 6 jerseys to ever be retired by the team. He has been active as the team representative to the NHLPA, the NHL Players Association, where he actually served 8 years as their president. Later on, after hockey, Trev transitioned to the corporate world, where he was president of hockey operations for the Vancouver Canucks. He is known for his incredible community service. Get this, he has not only received the Order of British Columbia, but he's also received the Order of Canada. His dedication to the community, continues today. He has projects such as over the years, such as Trevor Linden Foundation, huge supporter of Canuck Place and BC Children's Hospital. Trev, since he left the world of hockey, has transitioned to the business world. He is an active partner in Club 16, Trevor Linden Fitness, with 16 clubs in British Columbia, Cheese Fit, Orangetheory. He is also a investor and a developer. He loves fitness and high-performance sport, and they continue to be a big part of his life. Trev enjoys cycling, cross-country skiing, and mountaineering. Trev and his wife, Christina, live in Vancouver, BC. You can often find them cycling in the cycling are on the slopes at Whistler in the Okanagan. They have a 4.5-year-old little boy, Roman. Trev, good morning, and thank you to the program.
Hey, Gary, you just had to show that draft photo, didn't you? I mean, the one thing, I mean, it's all good except that draft photo where I got that silly looking hat on. Boy,
yeah,
what
pretty crazy times. It's interesting, Trev, as I sort of was doing some prep to, sort of get ready for this call. As I was saying to you earlier, it was sort of a walk down memory lane for me, and so incredibly nostalgic. I mean, obviously, I'm from British Columbia and I've been a Vancouver Canuck fan, for most of my life. And, certainly from my standpoint, being in Vancouver, we just know how unbelievably impactful you were to the Canucks. But more importantly, I think for your legacy and for your history was what you did for the community and for the city and for gelling people together. Really extraordinary. So first off, I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I often think, Gary, that draft day, June 11th, 1988, I often think, boy, that was such an impactful day because so much of my life unfolded because of that day. Had I been drafted to, Minnesota picked before me, Quebec picked after me, Winnipeg was, I mean, if I went to one of these other cities, what would my life look like? It would be completely different. So I was super fortunate to come to a great city and be part of this town, not only on the hockey landscape, but also just in the community, which I've met so many great people. So it's been a heck of a ride. It's I've kind of made Vancouver was home basically right away, and it's been just feel so fortunate that it worked out that way.
Yeah, and I think you were drafted second overall. I mean, it's crazy, right? You were a Medicine Hat kid. Let's start there. Actually, let's go back and talk about you growing up. I'd like to maybe just explore sort of like where you came from, your background, what you were like as a kid. Before we jump into that, guys, anyone who wants any questions, as always, on the comment section, feel free to send us a question for Trev that we'll get to. Certainly make a post. Hashtag today is #grit, GRIT. That's a book that Trev has really enjoyed that he's read over the years. We're going to be giving away 50 of those books as well to anyone who's making a post or a comment. But so please feel free, guys, to jump in. Also, a quick thank you to our sponsor, First Nat, for all the good work that they do. So, Trev, you grew up in Medicine Hat, and for those of you who don't know, Medicine Hat is a small town in British Columbia. You were there since you were a little boy, or your parents were immigrants?
So Gary, I was the second of three boys. I was born in 1970. My oldest brother was born in 68. We're 2 years apart. Youngest brother in 72, and I was born. Interesting. Medicine Hat's a small prairie town. It's windy. It's cold. There's no hills. There's no trees. There's no water. It's pretty flat. I was born there in 1970, and my parents. It's interesting. My dad at that time, him and his dad were in business, and they had gone through a tough time in the late 60s, and kind of they were in a rough spot. My dad kind of went into business on his own after that. They were kind of out of money, and as they say, they were broke at the time. So I was born, and we were living in a trailer park in Medicine Hat, and my dad actually, kind of got on the right track in the 70s and had a really got going. My mom was the bookkeeper, but I grew up very humbly, and it's interesting because my parents had nothing to do with hockey, not athletic at all, and they had no idea why their 4-year-old son wanted to watch Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday nights, and they were baffled by this, and I wanted to play hockey, and they had no idea why. And I'll never forget one of the greatest days of my life. My mom came home from a garage sale with a pair of Tony Esposito skates for me, and that kind of started. I went to the outdoor rinks, and I've got photos of it. This one day I just wanted to go skating, and I wanted to go so bad, and my dad was like, "Listen, Trev, it's -30 out. We're not. It's too cold," and I just insisted on going. So he took me out there, and I was skating around, shooting a puck around, and he sat in the truck while it was running and watched me. But they had no idea I had this love for the game and where it came from.
And you were very active in sports. I mean, I know you played a lot of sports. You did some speed skating. You played some baseball as well, a couple other sports. Were your brothers in hockey as well? Did they take to it like you did, or was it just you?
Yeah, that's, I was a hockey player in the winter. I was a baseball player in the summer. I thought I'm going to play in the major leagues when I was playing baseball in the summer. As kids, that's what we did. We didn't have, like, obviously back then we'd have screens and that sort of thing. So we basically were outside all the time playing hockey, playing baseball, football, whatever it may be. So my younger brother actually played in the Western League. And as he says, when people asked if he played in the NHL, he said yes, and they asked how long. He says long enough to get a hockey card. I think he played 3 games in the National Hockey League and got sent down. True story. The first game he got sent back to the minors, tore his ACL, MCL, blew his knee, and never really made it back. So, but yeah, we're all 3 of us are very close to this day, but all had kind of enjoyed sports as kids.
Unbelievable. And your dad was building a business at the time and that sort of stuff. Was it, was it hard to get the parent support? Were they there for you? I mean, once they realized you loved it, were they all in or?
Yeah. My dad, my family was entrepreneurial. My dad worked his tail off, and, he had a great, the 70s in Alberta were great. And my dad built a business and they became, they're very successful. But my mom was really the glue that kept our family together. And she, regardless of what we didn't have as far as financial means, she made sure that whatever we wanted to do, we're able to do it. And if it was going to garage sales, it was going to the swap shop, getting us equipment was going to happen. If we wanted to play, we were, she made it happen. And I think the one thing that, and this maybe relates back to the book Grit that we were talking about earlier, is that, as a kid, I was a self-driver. My parents weren't pushing me to play. They weren't athletic. They weren't into hockey. It was me kind of driving the bus, and they were very supportive. I remember being 10, 11 years old, and it was kind of frustrating because they didn't know anything about hockey. So I'd go and play and oh, look at that. Wow. Geez, that's a classic. So I'd go play a game, and I was very, self-aware of my performance. And if I felt like I didn't play well, I'd be annoyed. But my mom and dad were so supportive. They were always like, Trev, good game. You should be proud of yourself. You played well. And I'd get mad because be like, guys, I didn't play well. That's not right. But but I think that, what it taught me is I was a self-starter. I was pushing the ball down the track. It wasn't them kind of, hey, let's you got to play. And so it was very much up to me. And that was when I look back at it, that was a positive.
Yeah. Interesting because, during that time as you played hockey in Medicine Hat, you obviously were offered a scholarship and you decided to stay in Medicine Hat and play, where you ultimately went on to win back-to-back Memorial Cups, which, in the NHL, in the WHL and, hockey in general is a big, big deal. Yeah. At what point when you were in Medicine Hat playing, did you actually sort of say, hey, I got to leave some of the other sports now. I think I might have a chance.
Yeah. Well, from the minute I was 4 years old, I remember, like, in kindergarten, 5 years old, I think or grade 1, I wrote a little note saying, I want to be a hockey player. I want to play in the NHL and score lots of goals. I have that framed in my office. And, I wanted to, from that moment, I had a one-track mind. That's all I wanted to do. So that was pretty clear for me as a boy. And keep in mind, back in the 70s in Alberta, there was no Edmonton Oilers, there's no Calgary Flames. So really, the NHL was a TV show on Saturday night for us. So that's what we watched, but it wasn't real because it was kind of like just on TV. What was real for me was the Medicine Hat Tigers of the Western Hockey League. I idolized those guys. That was my dream. So having the opportunity to play in Medicine Hat was a dream come true. Russ Farwell was the GM of the Tigers. They listed me. They didn't have a draft back then. I was actually on the protected list when I was 12 years old, which is extremely rare. But, so to live that dream out and then to actually win back-to-back Memorial Cups was beyond incredible. So that was a really special experience. That year I turned 18. I won the World Junior. May of '87. I won the Memorial Cup. That Christmas of '87, we went to Moscow and won the World Juniors. We won another Memorial Cup in May of 88. I was drafted to the Vancouver Canucks in June of 88 and graduated from high school in June of 88. And in September of 88, I was at my first training camp in Parksville, BC for the Vancouver Canucks with Harold Sneps as my roommate. So that was a hell of a year.
Unbelievable. Wow. What a walk down memory lane. Absolutely incredible. So we're talking about hockey. We'll kind of jump into that now. So, you were drafted second overall. You ended up in Vancouver, and then 2 years later in Vancouver. And I mean, the youngest captain in the league. Like, how did that happen? They just came to you one day, Trev, and they said, because it's interesting. You said something to me really, really that resonated with me the other day when we were chatting. You said, Gary, I always got the most out of what I was given. I never had the most talent. I always had to work for it. And to actually take that when you weren't the most talented, but you just, you had this consistency, and then we're given the C at 21 years old. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a lot, Gary. I mean, I was always a real responsible kid. I was a kid that, always tried to do the right thing, was prepared, worked hard. I remember going to the Y when I was 12 years old, had no idea what I was doing, the YMCA in Medicine Hat. I was watching the older kids work out thinking, if I do this is going to make me a better hockey player. And, I was driven. I wanted to be a hockey player. And so when I got drafted, obviously Pat Quinn was the manager, and he had such a huge impact on my on my life, on my career as a hockey player, as my, as a person. I think Pat was a special man, and the captaincy at 21. Looking back, that was a lot. That was a lot of pressure. I mean, but I wanted it. I wanted that pressure. I wanted that responsibility. And thankfully, I had a lot of good people around me. When I think of the Stan Smeals and the Garth Butchers and the Doug Lidsters and these types of guys that were really supportive of me and everything. So that was important. And I think throughout our lives, through high school or junior hockey, or for me, we have mentors, and for me, Pat was special. Pat taught me about leadership and about people, and Pat had an amazing ability to be. He cared about people, and I think any person in a leadership position, first and foremost, you got to care. You got to care about your people. You have to have empathy. You have to be firm. Pat was tough. He was hard, but he was fair. And I think that really resonated. The other great thing that Pat did was that he recognized people's strengths. He knew he would never ask. He wasn't going to ask Cliff Ronning to run over someone in the corner. He wasn't going to ask, Sergio Momesso to, be, dipsy doodle in center ice. I mean,
right.
He recognized people and knew what their strengths were, and asked them to get as much out of that as they could. And so Pat he treated people the right way, and that resonated throughout the entire organization, not only the hockey team. So he was a special person for me.
Yeah, I know you had a lot of mentors sort of as you went through your journey. And I think, is it fair to say Pat was, probably the one that had the greatest impact, and he recognized your talent early and sort of developed that, nurtured that. Was there any other that stand out?
Yeah. As players, I was drafted in 1988, came into the league, and obviously Pat was the manager. He became coach a couple of years later, and not only he was such an amazing teacher of the game. He loved to teach. His passion was really coaching. And when he came back and was the coach, he was an amazing guy to be around. I have an interesting story. As a young player, 92, I went to the All-Star game in Chicago and met some of the greats, the Steve Yzermans, the Ray Borks, the Mario Lemieux, the Wayne Gretzkys. Went to the All-Star game again in 93 in Philly. And then, but it wasn't until, one of the guys I met was Steve Yzerman, and I always loved Steve because he was a down to earth guy, and he was real. So story of when we went to Nagano, and so when you get a collection of these all-star teams, we went to Nagano. We were the first NHL team to go to the Olympics. So,
Wow.
the greatest of the greatest players were there. I was thankful to be a part of that group. But, being a guy like Yzerman, who was the, led the league in goals, MVP, was one of the great Stanley Cup champion. Seeing him in that environment where he was like, checking his ego at the door. Hey, I'm all in. What do you need me to do to be successful? And I have to say, Gary, being around, I played in the World Cup in '96, played in the Olympics in '98, and you realize a lot of the great players who you thought were great, when you get up close, and a lot of those guys weren't willing to do that. And Steve was one of these guys that, hey, I'll do whatever it takes. You want me to kill penalties? You want me to check on the third line? I'm good with that. Where some of these guys are like, hey, if I'm not on the power play, I'm taking my ball. I'm going to go home. You know what I mean? Like, not that they're going to quit, but you can tell they're just not. Yeah. They're not into it. They're not willing to sacrifice. And seeing a guy, and so I'll never forget that experience. Seeing Steve behave that way in that environment was such a message to me that great leaders, great people, they do what's got to be done. And they're willing to set their ego aside and do whatever it takes to have success. And whether it's a hockey team or whatever team you're a part of, a business team, that's impactful. So for me, that was a real lesson for me. And I was young. I was 27 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely amazing. It's funny because I look back and at all those experiences along the way, and we talk about our parents, and isn't it interesting how you look back and you go, well, I actually had an accidental mentor, and it was my parents that sort of got me started and supported me when I was young, and how that translates through life. It's interesting because if you look at sort of your hockey career, and when I was prepping again, I was just so blown away by sort of some of the things, right? As we said, we talked about, so you played obviously 20 years in the NHL and 16 years on two different stints with Vancouver, of course. You played a short time in Long Island for the Islanders. And for Montreal and then Washington, but you also during that time, you led the league as the league Ironman at one time, I think with 437 or 438, games. You played in 5 tournaments for Team Canada. We talked about the Olympics already. And then on top of all that, you were representing the players in the NHLPA. Mm-hmm. So, like, how did that come about? You had so much on your plate all the time. All of a sudden, you're representing the NHL Players Association. Mm-hmm. That must have held you in very high regard with the rest of the players throughout the league.
Yeah, I got involved in the Players Association in 1992, partly because I say that because I cared, because I wanted to have a voice at the table. I wanted to be informed. I wanted to understand the business, because at the end of the day, when I think about when I first came in the league in 1988, we were at the Pacific Coliseum. I could walk into the business offices of the Vancouver Canucks, and I would know everyone by their first name. I would know their kids' names. That's how many people were part of that organization. You walk down to Rogers Arena now, there are hundreds of people that work. It has gone from a mom and pop business from when I started to when I left, it was big business. And so, I wanted to, I looked at my life and said, I never got the opportunity to go to post-secondary education. So I barely graduated high school, and I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand the business that I was involved in, that so when decisions had to be made, that I was informed. So that was, that was the start in 92. And I was part of the licensing committee and worked on different committees. And then in 2000, I became the president. Of course, that was right up to the run up to the lockout, or to the labor disruption of 2004, which was brutal, Gary. That was, I look back how hard that was. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think that we all grow from difficult, challenging situations. That certainly was that. We missed a full season, and I was in a tough spot. You've got guys that, think about it. You got guys that have, 7, 8, 10-year careers, and they're calling me saying, Trevor, I just lost a year of my career, a year. Right. And, let me understand this. You want me to sacrifice another year?
Yeah.
And these were hard calls. And then you get the call from the other guy saying, and this, maybe the other guy was a multi-million-dollar player who had played for 15 years and made a bunch of money, and say, hey, we're gonna stick it to these owners. And so finding the right balance and trying to figure out what was fair. And I think that the key to the whole negotiation in 2004, I could write a book on that itself, was, when you're sitting across a table in negotiations with 6 people on one side and 6 people on the other side, and you're handing proposals back and forth, you get nothing done. That is just for show. Where we got somewhere is when I sat down one-on-one or in small groups with Harley Hotchkiss, the owner of the Calgary Flames, and Harley, who's an honorable man, said, guys, these are our problems. These are our challenges. This is why this doesn't work anymore for us. And you look in the whites of their eyes and you understand that business, and you can say to them, well, these are our challenges, or this is, you know what I mean? You start to make some headway, and we started to do that and got to a place where I'm proud of the work that we did. I mean, the committee, our committee was dealt a really challenging hand, but I'm proud of the work we did.
Yeah, I got lots to cover here, but I want to just go to a couple questions here, just so we can pick through them. So first one, what was the most challenging aspect of moving into the corporate world from your time in hockey?
Yeah. It's interesting. When I was in Montreal, I got to meet Dickie Moore, and I'd always had a lot of respect. I find, I said this to you yesterday, Gary, athletes and what they do after their career, whether it's basketball players, baseball players, football players, hockey players, what do they do after their career? A lot of them stay in the game. Some of them, and it's so fascinating to see. And I remember talking to Dickie Moore, who, those guys didn't make a lot of money. He played in the 50s and 60s, and he went in the rental business in Montreal and Quebec, equipment rental, super successful guy. And I always had a lot of admiration for players that, could distinguish, hey, I was a hockey player, and then I moved into another business and didn't have to rely on hockey to I found another way to be successful. And when I retired in 2008, I really said, listen, I need to take a couple of years to figure out who I am and what I'm good at and what direction, where my passions lie. And I really wanted to be independent of the game and find a new path. And so, and in doing that, I mean, it's not a linear type thing. You're going to make mistakes. And, I went into the development business, and we had a couple successful, smaller projects, $10, $15 million projects. And then I had one that wasn't so positive, and I moved from that. I met Chuck, and we went into the fitness business, which has been just an amazing experience. Chuck's been a great partner. And so just through kind of different avenues, I kind of found my way. And I think the important thing was that with the fitness business, I found something that aligned with who I was. That was authentic to what I was about. I believed in it. I knew that for me, fitness was an important part of my life. It's an important part of my mental health, my physical health. So it was, oh geez, look at that, eh? Running with a suit on. So I knew it was, I mean, you just kind of follow your passion, follow what works for you. But it wasn't, I mean, and I was always the type of guy that, I know a lot of guys that it's hard for them to leave the game. I was excited about leaving the game. I'd had an amazing 20-year run, but I was ready for the next chapter. I was ready for the next challenge. I was ready to, I've met so many incredible people, working with Chuck, and certainly our relationship, Gary, and the things that we've done in the past few years. I mean, it's just been, it's just been really rewarding. And just a little story for you. I mean, the adrenaline rush as a hockey player is scoring a goal or winning a game. I mean, there's nothing like it. And when you leave the game, it's kind of a void. And so Chuck Lawson, my fitness partner, we were going to open our first club in Coquitlam, and we had this great concept. We had a great facility, and I remember I said to him, I said, Chuck, are we gonna and we were starting our pre-sale at the Coquitlam Center Mall, and I said to him, Chuck, are we going to sell any memberships tomorrow, you think? And he goes, I think we are. And so the rush of seeing, I remember I was out there on day one, the lineup for our pre-sale was out the door. I've never, I mean, it was like winning a game. It was like, you know, so you have those moments in business that, you know, really equal what I felt as an athlete. And it was pretty special.
Yeah, it's interesting. What a lot of you probably don't know is that I'm actually a partner to Trev and Chuck in Club 16, and you know that sort of tenacity and consistency and commitment that I think Trev helped you largely in your career has helped you in business. Talk to me. I know we know you know it's interesting because I know your transition and what you've done, and the different businesses that you've been involved in. And I love the way you actually turned this. So I'm gonna give it to you. So tell us about your foray into affordable housing.
Yeah. Well, I talked earlier about my when I first left the game. I retired. I played my last game in April of 2008. I bought a piece of property in Victoria to do a development on in May of 2008. And what happened in September of 2008? The world fell apart. The economic meltdown. So I had this piece of property in Victoria and was trying to do a development there, which was like pushing a rock up a hill. So I realized there was a lot of moving parts to developing, and there was a lot of risk involved. So I thought I need to find something that's boring, and that when I sleep at night, I'm still making some money. And so I got into what I call the affordable housing, which is mobile home parks. Started buying in 2010, 9, 10, 11, 12 mobile home parks, and it's a very boring business. I find that we don't own any infrastructure. We own pads, and and so that's I think that I've looked for some diversity. Obviously, active business being Club 16, She's Fit. I've got and then I've got the boring side of it, which is kind of managing mobile home parks.
Yeah, which is it's really interesting how you look back and you find yourself in these areas that you just never thought you'd be into, right? But and you've been very successful at mobile home parks, Trev. So we know that you've grown that business remarkably. I'm going to jump to another question quickly. David, you got another one there queued up? Where's your favorite area to go ski touring in BC? Why don't you tell them about what you just did?
Yeah, this is right up. Well, you know what? Yeah, so I retired in 2008, and I remember thinking, boy, I was a hockey player for 20 years. And, when you're a hockey player, you have no weekends. I mean, the season starts, your training camp starts in September, you're finished in May, and it's like, there's no weekends. It's basically game day or practice day. That's what it is. And so I just could not wait to be a skier. And so, and since I've got into ski touring and done a couple trips in Europe, the one in the middle there, that's Jackson Hole. That's the Grand Tetons there, right in the middle of that one there. Yeah. And so that's in Jackson. And I mean, I just love spending time in the mountains with my friends. I was just up in Blue River, up in the Caribou Mountains between Blue River and Valemount in a hut for 5 days, a couple weekends ago. I'm heading up to Whitecap Alpine this weekend, which is kind of a 15-minute heli ride from Pemberton. Sea to sky is amazing. I've skied in the Kootenays. Rogers Pass is a special place. Thankfully my wife is a Lion. She loves skiing as much as I do. So we don't really, we have a no travel or only ski travel from like December 1st to like April 15th. So, so there she is there. There's our little guy. There's Roman. He was 2 weeks old there. Our friend was doing an Ironman in Whistler. So we're up there cheering for him. So yeah, I mean, I love to be out in the mountains and hiking around, no lift lines. And so it's pretty special.
We're going to go back to another question here in a minute, but before we do, I want to talk about heartbreak. You work so hard for something and you think you're so close, and then you just fall a little bit short. And specifically, I'm talking about the run in 1994. You're into Stanley Cup Finals. You were down 3-1. I mean, I remember watching that series. You guys came back, brought it to Game 7 in New York City. It was, and I mean, as I said, that particular team was a very, very special team. Like, I remember those players in that team and how just gel you were. And it was just the the city was just, absolutely intoxicated by that team. Tell us a little bit about that run that year and that group of guys, and then how you dealt with it after just being a little bit short.
Yeah. Maybe just step back a little bit from that actual year. And Pat came in 87. I was drafted in 88. He made the Ronning, Momesso, Courtnall, Hedican trade. And then we that 92 season, we won the Smythe division. We were the best team in the Smythe. We ended up losing to the Oilers in the second round. 93, we were supposed to go deep again. We lost to the LA Kings, who went and lost in the Stanley Cup final that year. So 94, first half of the year, we struggled. We weren't very good. We had a bunch of people injured. And we picked up Marty Jelena after Christmas. We picked up Tim Hunter. We got some guys healthy again. We traded Peter Nedved and got Jeff Brown and Brett Hedican and Nathan Lafayette at the deadline. And so we kind of got on this run, down 3-1 to Calgary, came back. Obviously, Pavel scored. I scored in game 6 in overtime. Pavel scored in game 7, an incredible goal. And that kind of set us. We went into Dallas and beat them in 5. And I think the coolest thing about that 94 year, can you imagine today if there was a conference final between Vancouver and Toronto? I mean, that would be, people's heads would explode, right? But that's what happened in 94. And people talk about, that Ranger series. But what was really amazing was the Vancouver Toronto series, which, incredible. So started out in Maple Leaf Gardens, won the first game, lost the second, came home for 3 because we're playing a 2-3-2 series at that time, and managed to beat the Leafs on home ice in game 5, which was and that I don't know if you remember, Gary, but the weather that spring was just ridiculous, right? So it was beautiful. People were going to the games. We're playing Toronto. We beat them in game 5. The city's going nuts, right? And so go into the Rangers series, and I'll never forget. We claw back from 3-1, and I'll never forget going into game 7 thinking, holy shit, I am 60 minutes away from carrying the Stanley Cup. I could tonight I could be carrying. And it was, not only for yourself being a lifelong dream, but for the city you play for and the province you play for and the Canuck fans. And, a quick story too. So get to the rink. We had a police escort from our hotel to Madison Square Garden. We're zipping through Manhattan, bikes going past us, blocking traffic. It was crazy. We get to the Garden, blur, we get dressed, and your mind is a mess, right? I step out on the ice for warm up, and the pucks were on the ice, and I step out and I go to pick up a puck, and I basically just missed it. I'm like, oh my God, like am I that messed up here? I was always, and so I'm in warm up, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I was one of those guys that, when the puck dropped, I was always at my best, seemingly in big games and certainly playoff games and stuff. And it didn't work out that night for us, Gary. And it was probably the most empty feeling I've ever had, because you think about the 2 months of, to coin a phrase, blood, sweat, and tears. And literally guys were banged up, broken ribs and, separated shoulders and, and you got nothing. And it takes a long time to move past that, and it hurts. But I think, like I said earlier, all really challenging, tough situations. And that with the book Grit that we're talking about is we talk about our kids, and, especially today, we never want to see our kids fail. It's a great book for parents with kids. And I think about my son who's 4.5, and kids learn. They learn about coming back from getting knocked down. You have to learn that. And it hurts. But, I think that as a parent, our kids have to fail. We have to see them fail. They have to understand failure to understand success. And one of the things I saw being an executive with the team is just, some of the entitlement that goes along with kids these days, and that's these are NHL prospects. And you realize that tough situations, failure, ultimately make us better. And I think that for me personally, failing in 94 like that, at the end of the day, makes you come back stronger. And understand who you are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because you were always known as a guy too that, what you did, one way you did always, everything you did, you were always a consistent guy. So you didn't have to get up for the playoffs, right? Like you were a perennial, top performer in the playoffs for every year. Why was that? Why were you wired that way? Or
what's interesting? Yeah, Gary, and the interesting thing, I was a good player throughout the regular season. I never had big numbers. I was kind of a 60, 70 point guy. But the one thing that I did do is, but I was always a very good player in the playoffs. And my Game 7 record, when the more that was on the line, the better I played. And I say that, and the reason for me that was the way is because I didn't change my game. My game was built on details, was built on structure. I did the same things in Game 1, in Game 30, in Game 50 than I did in Game 1 of the playoffs or Game 7 of the playoffs. My game never changed, so I never had to adapt in any way. And I think that when we get results oriented as professionals or a hockey player, when we think about, hey, I haven't scored in 6 games, I have to score tonight, I have to perform, that's when we get off track. And for me, it was always about, hey, what's the process? What steps do I need to take to be successful tonight in tonight's game? And, hey, think about my first shift. Think about the little things I need to do every step of the way. The results will come. And that's, I think that, I said earlier, I feel like I got the most out of what was given to me from an athletic standpoint and from a hockey standpoint. And I was a good playoff performer because I knew that the little things mattered, and I never changed that. Game 1 of the regular season or Game 1 of playoffs, I did the same thing.
Yeah, so inspiring, Trev. Oh my goodness, thank you. So I'm going to take one more question here, and then I'm going to jump into sort of, community spirit and giving back and, that sort of thing. So, David, what do we got there? Hi, Trev. Thanks for all you've done both on and off the ice. For someone as successful as yourself, can you talk about how you overcame any self-doubt, procrastination, or other self-made obstacles? Great question.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I think there's with all of us, I mean, we have, I'm no different. I mean, I had times throughout my career where I questioned myself and you question whether you're capable, whether you're up for it, whether, and I think that I go back to what I talked about a little earlier, we have to have a foundation of where we go back to. What do we rely on? What are the habits every day that we do? What is our foundational core beliefs that if I do this and I do this every single day, I'm going to, that is going to put me on the right track. And, I think that when we start to doubt people, when we start to doubt ourselves, we're actually doubting the result down the road. And it's like, okay, hang on here. Let's not get down the road. Let's just think about today.
Right.
Let's just think about tomorrow. What is our foundation? What do we believe in? What do we know that if we do these things on a consistent basis, these consistent habits, that is going to, if I'm prepared, if I've done my homework, if I'm banging on the door, if I'm doing the right things on the day-to-day basis, I think that takes a lot of the, that self-doubt, that procrastination, that uncertainty, because ultimately when we have that, we become frozen. We don't, we're kind of locked. And so my thought on that is that, have a plan and execute. I mean, like, when we, and that was so great about Pat Quinn. Pat Quinn took the game and said, yeah, hey, we want to win the game at the end of the night, but how do we do that? And so, it's about having a plan and executing. And if we do that from shift 1, we'll get the result we want. I mean, or we'll come damn close, but we'll get there. And I think that's safe to say for anyone out there, with whatever business you're in.
Yeah, no, so true. Such good advice. Trev, let's talk about, sort of, you were beloved. You still are for your engagement in the community. I mean, you brought the community together and you've done that for many years. not only did you get obviously the Order of BC, but you also got the Order of Canada, which is, it's for community engagement. It's actually the country's highest honor and recognition of a lifetime of outstanding dedication to community and service to the nation. Like, how does that happen? Someone just phone you one day and say, "Hey, Trevor, giving it to you." Like, where does that, like explain that to us, number one, and then explain to us also, some of the BC Children's Hospital and the hospice, which is, a center for terminally ill children and their kids. I mean, you led that team, right, by example, and because of that, many others on the team and all the years to follow, right, followed your leadership around those principles.
I think this goes back to mentors. It goes back to building a culture. When I think about coming here as an 18-year-old from Medicine Hat, I had no idea what philanthropy, what being part of the community was about. I just didn't know. No one had taught me anything about that. I'll never forget one of the first meetings I had as a Vancouver Canuck. Pat Quinn was like, we expect a lot of you. We expect a lot from you on the ice. Of course, that's your job. But we expect this group to be part of this community, and we expect a lot of you off the ice. And that really resonated with me. And that leadership from Pat, from the Griffiths family, to get involved, to be involved. And, once I kind of got started with Ronald McDonald House, and, I was there for the groundbreaking of Canuck Place. And just being part of that was, I always felt that I was so lucky to be doing what I was doing, to be healthy, to be fulfilling a dream, that the least I could do was to make a difference for people that weren't as fortunate as me. And I had some amazing experiences, met some amazing people. I'll never forget, early in my career and going to Children's Hospital and Canuck Place and Ronald McDonald House and spending time with kids that were, fighting cancer. And, these kids were amazing. They gave me so much spirit and so much energy, because they just had this amazing belief about them. And I remember this because I so understand it now, because I have my own child now who's 4.5, and that these kids had so much vigor and lust and like, I'm good. I'm going to beat this. And then I'd spend some time with the parents and look in their eyes. I could see the fear and the scare and how scared they were. And it really, really, hit home. So, my brother said something to me interesting early in my career. He said, Trev, he says, you have this incredible gift. He says, how many people can just walk into a child's hospital room and make a difference for them?
Light them up.
You can. And I thought, wow, I'm going to, it kind of resonated with me. And I was kind of like, I'm going to, take advantage of that gift, because I won't have it forever. I don't have it now because the kids don't know who the hell I am, because they're too young to remember me. But back in the day, I mean, to have a kid to the game, to spend some time with him away from the rink, it was really special. And I have to say, I mean, as much as I gave, I got as much back. And it was a pretty special place to be. And I met some amazing people along the way as well.
Yeah. And on behalf of everyone certainly watching us today, and, from me to you, I can't tell you this, enough, but I mean, that is what resonates, the most with me. Just that continued work that you did and continue to do for so long was incredible. I mean, I think that's really, your DNA and who you are. Right. And I think that,
Gary, I said this to you yesterday. I said to you that one of the biggest compliments I get, and people come up to me all the time and say, "Hey, you're Trevor Linden," and they'll say, and one of the coolest things I get is that when they say, I'm not a hockey fan. I've never really liked hockey, but I've always really admired you. And I'm like, wow, that is really cool. And I'm just kind of humbled by that, and really blown away. But it's I mean, it's I've always said I've had a very special relationship with the fans of the Vancouver Canucks and the people of BC, and just it's been really cool, and I'm super grateful.
Yeah, let's talk about we got maybe 10 or 12 minutes left or whatever we have, but let's talk about sort of some coaches along the way. Obviously you loved, Pat Quinn, the big Irishman, and
Yeah.
who was the most difficult coach that you ever played with that you just thought, oh my God, like this is so much work to want to work for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, without going into too much detail, I mean, obviously
Right.
it's pretty well documented, but Mike Keenan would probably
Right.
be the guy that was.
That's where I was going.
The guy that was. Yeah, it was a crazy time. I can't. It was completely. That was a weird time, man. It was. I'll never forget that summer. I was driving back from Worcester with Christina, and I listened to the radio. And I'm like, wow, geez, we just traded for Mark Messier, and right away the wheels started turning. Like it was like, well, I mean, he's the captain of the New York Rangers, and he's coming here, and I know that he's probably going to be thinking he needs a leadership position. And so I was kind of at training camp. We're in Japan.
You gave him the C.
Yeah. I offered it to him, and he took it. So obviously it was important to him to have, but that was a difficult situation. And of course, Pat left and Mike came in, and it was a mess. So it was completely, it was chaotic. He was everything. He was completely opposite. He was everything opposite that Pat Quinn was. And it was hard to, that was a challenging time. And having said that, when I came back to the Vancouver Canucks, in 2001, that was a great, I came back to, and that was Mark Crawford and Jack McElhargy. Right. And Mike Johnson. That was that coaching staff. And you talk about great leaders and people in mentorship positions. And I'll never forget Mark sitting me down really early, because I was nervous as hell to come back to this team. I mean, I'm like, my God, I had 10 great years here, and now I'm back. I mean, oh my God.
You didn't sleep the night before or something. I mean, it was like this city welcomed you back. They were so excited to have you back.
Gary, I was a mess. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I didn't, but Mark brought me in and said, listen, Trev, we don't need you to score goals. We don't need you to be a point per game guy. Don't worry about that. You come here, you be you come in and mentor, be a leader for some of these young guys. Just go play your game. Do the right things. He just talked about the process. Just do your thing. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry about results. Don't worry about scoring. We don't need you to score. I walked out of there like someone took a 50-pound weight off my back, and I was like, okay. And I'll never forget I walked into the room. First thing I did, I grabbed Marcus Naslund, who was the captain. I said, listen, I want you to know I am here to support you. I want to be part of this leadership group. I by no means expect anything more than that. If I can help at all, let me know. I'm here for you. I want to be part of your group and not take, what I mean? I don't want anything. And it was, but that coaching staff, Gary, was awesome. They were great. And that was a lot of fun. Those teams, when I came back, the West Coast Express and young group of players, and Eddie Jovanovski and Matthias Olin on the back end, and Brent Sopel and Sammy Salo. And that team was fun to be a part of. And that coaching staff was so organized, and it's just such a good staff to play for. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That was, it's funny because you played with a lot of really, really good players throughout your career. What was I sort of know the question when I'm going to answer it, but Pavel Bure, what was that like playing? Was he that special? Was he that elite when he came in?
I mean, he was a talent like no other. I mean, everyone remembers that first game against the Winnipeg Jets at the Pacific Coliseum, and he was so his physical skill aside, he was quick and powerful, but he also had this. He loved to score. He loved to score. He was driven to score. It didn't matter if the score was, if we were up 6-1 or we were down 6-1, he wanted to score. And, that's a real characteristic of great goal scorers. And I know you're thinking, well, doesn't everyone want to score? Well, no, I mean, some players are just wired that way. And he was wired. He loved to score. And he was special. That was a pretty cool, time.
Yeah, no kidding. David, I know you got one or two more questions that you were prompting me on. Do you want to maybe just put one on the screen and we'll get to it? Amazing, great. Did you have the imposter syndrome as such a young captain? How did you get through it? Great question.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I was prepared. I was in a leadership role with my junior team, and I was probably more mature than I probably should have been at the time, and was kind of, at the end of the day, kind of felt, when I look back, I was probably should have been more of a kid at the time, but I wanted to be in a leadership role, and I think that I played with heart. I wore my heart on my sleeve, and I cared, and I think that, and I cared about people. So, and I had Pat Quinn, and I had some good people around me. So, I it was hard. I mean, I took losses hard. I took the team performance to heart. But I have to say, I wanted it. I wanted that pressure. I wanted to be counted on. I wanted to be the guy that was, in that position. So, I tried to be as authentic as I could. It wasn't perfect for sure. And, you make mistakes, but at the end of the day, you do what's you feel is right, and that's all you can be asked of.
Yeah, yeah. Trev, do you set goals? Do you were goals always part of your thing? Do you write in January or throughout the year something, or is it more of sort of a day-to-day thing, just living your principles? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I was, I think when I in my hockey playing life, I did write in a journal. I did talk about, I had reinforcements and words that I used and goals that I had. I've kind of slid away from that a little bit. I'm kind of full-time dad, so less so now. But I do obviously have, some foundational things that I believe in, and for me, back to the fitness side of things, I know that I'm at my best when I'm getting my exercise and being healthy, and spending some time. I believe it's important for all of us to have some alone time. So that's something we're passionate about. And for me, it's just spending time in the mountains, and whether it be in the summertime, hiking or whatever that may be, or skiing. So I think it's, mental health is such a huge part of our lives, and um, you know, I believe exercise and getting those positive endorphins. I realized when I left hockey in 2008, my job basically was that I went to the rink every day, and we practiced or worked out or whatever. So that was part of my job. So when I left in '08, I kind of realized how much I missed that and how much I needed that, not only from a physical standpoint, but just from a mental standpoint. I'm a better friend and better husband and better dad and better brother when I've got just where I'm getting what I need.
yeah, I love that you said, or I read the interview or something, or you said now your job is, you got this pursuit, this lifelong pursuit now of finding like happiness and being happy, but you want to be the MVP of fatherhood. And I thought that was, and I mean, yesterday, obviously we were talking, right? I saw Roman in the background and popped up and said hi, and you're absolutely loving that, aren't you?
Yeah, it's pretty special, Gary. I mean, obviously my wife and I are both coming at this from an older age. I mean, I was 48 when Roman was born. So, and I think it's interesting being an older parent, you kind of have a different perspective. And I know that I just know how fast this goes. I mean, he's going to go into kindergarten next year. I'm already sad to say that he's going to be gone all day. I pick him up every day from school now, and we come home and have lunch. And so, yeah, I think really there he is. He's a lot bigger than that now, but he's, and I think Gary too, I think I've gotten to a place in life where I'm so thankful that I'm able to be that full-time dad. But also too, I think just, from a mental health standpoint, just finding a place where you're happy, finding happiness, finding some satisfaction and some quietness and some calmness. And we live in such a crazy world with the last 2 years of COVID, which has been so hard on so many families and so many individuals and business and what have you. And we've got this incredibly sad situation happening in the Ukraine right now. And, I mean, at times you can get pretty caught up, and the world's a tough spot. I mean, and so just to find that inner peace and that happiness and that calmness, I guess, is something that I'm spending time working on. And being Roman's dad is the biggest part of that for me. And this is going to go incredibly quick. Like they say, you only have 18 summers, and so trying to maximize those times, and that's kind of my focus right now.
Yeah, Trev, you got just 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll wrap.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a lot of questions here. I'm just going to pick. I'm going to have Dave just pick us a couple other ones quickly to go on, and then we'll get through them. When is Trevor Linden's autobiography coming out? Finally, we just spoke about that this morning.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had. I said to Gary this morning, I've had a lot of opportunity for that. I would be scared. I'm scared to see what might come out in that. So, just delving into the lockout of 04 and the Mike Keenan era and the Mark Messier area. Yeah, So I'm afraid of that. So I'm not sure I can guarantee that's going to happen.
Next question, David. Who's your mindset coach, Trev? Like, who do you look to, I guess, for, who inspires you or do you look for to help you?
You know what? I think that mental health for everybody, I think, is so important. And, I think everyone has their own place with it. And I think that it's okay. I think it's less a stigma that we talk about it, but I have a bit of a life coach and therapist that I talk to on a regular basis. And it's just so, and I think that's so important. I mean, we spend so much time, or at least, thinking about our physical side but I think as a society, we need to dedicate more time to kind of, our mental health and where we are with that. So, I have a person I talk to regularly and sorting through things and figuring out things. And it's been really, really good.
Yeah, good for you. Okay, David, let's go. Last question. What is your secret for being such a great leader?
I'll say this. There is no secret. Leadership is actually, I believe it to be pretty simple. As I said about Pat Quinn, care about people. Do what you say you're going to do. Be authentic, be real, be willing to do whatever it takes. If it, get in the trenches, give people autonomy, let them, give them clear direction, be communicative. Those things are, and I think that at the end of the day, it's your actions that speak louder than any words. And, you can, in a locker room, a hockey locker room, or in a boardroom, you can say whatever you want, but if you don't back it up with action, people see right through that. And the greatest characteristic of a leader is that they're authentic, they're real, and they're willing to admit a mistake. They're okay with failure, but they are real. And I think that's, at the end of the day, there is no secret to it. It's just being authentic, working hard, caring about people, and I think it's about finding your own style and your own way about being a leader. And people can see that.
That might have been the best answer around sort of leadership that we've ever had on this program. I see my little girl, my daughter, Marissa Mauris, just commented. She goes on screen and said, "There it is. My favorite level up to date. Super inspiring." Glad you enjoyed that, honey. Trevor, I usually wrap with something that we call rapid fire. It's just quick questions, very, very quick. And
terrible at this, Gary.
Yeah, well, it's okay. These are easy ones. So first one: happy or content?
Happy.
Perfect. Talking or texting?
Talking.
You had to think about that one a little bit.
Yeah.
Nickname, maybe your kids, your wife, or your parents call you?
T?
Yeah,
T.
Perfect. Your secret indulgence?
Oh, I love cookies. Yeah.
You like your sweets?
When everyone goes to bed, I sit and have my tea and find my little stash of chocolate. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Your pet peeve?
People being late.
Yeah, it's one of mine too, actually.
Yeah.
Favorite holiday?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's activity-based skiing with, whether Chris and I go, or hiking, or
Cool.
spending time in the mountains, hiking or skiing.
Favorite cocktail?
Negroni.
Negroni. Okay. Favorite music?
Country. Eric Church.
I love country. What goal is it you're still trying to achieve?
Happiness.
Happiness. Beautiful. And last one, Trev, what are you most grateful for?
Oh boy.
Or maybe what are you grateful for? Not even most grateful for, but what are you grateful for?
You know what, Gary, I think that we are, as Canadians, we are so lucky to live in this incredible country, the gifts that we are given, the opportunities that we have. I'm incredibly grateful for the amazing career I had, the health that I continue to have and hopefully have, my son, which has been the greatest gift ever. I mean, the list goes on, and I think that what we have and the opportunities we have in this great country, especially when we see what's happening in the Ukraine, it just makes it all the more real. And I hope that as Canadians, we see that and can use that to be better.
Absolutely incredible. Well, folks, there you have it. Just over an hour with Trevor Linden. Trev, just an absolute privilege. It's so inspiring. I sat here and I've made a ton of notes myself. Thoroughly enjoyed the talk today. Thank you for everything you continue to do. Thanks for being such an inspiration and, just such a barometer for, down to earth and sincerity. Talked about the skill of a leader, number one skill of a leader, authenticity. You absolutely speak that language. So on behalf of all of our live listeners that are on live stream, our people in all of our different groups and companies, I just want to say to you firsthand that we really appreciate you, and we are really grateful for the last hour.
Awesome. Thanks. Great to be with you, Gary, and great to be part of Level Up. I know you've had some incredible guests, so a little nervous coming on here, but hopefully we had fun. I enjoyed every minute of it, and hi everyone out there, and hope you enjoyed it as well.
It was actually really funny, Trev, and I didn't say that on today's call because I just, but you had said to me, we were talking, God, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago about coming on or something, and Trev sort of said right away, I guess I will, but I'm a little, what am I going to say? He says to me, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I'm a guy for a program. I've seen some of your episodes.
I've watched some of your other podcasts. I'm kind of like, I can't measure. Yeah. I can't level up with those guys.
Yeah, well, you absolutely killed it, and I knew you would. So thank you. Just as we're going to wrap here, guys, I'm going to, David, we have another guest coming up. Our next guest is who? Our next guest is Greg Westlake, Paralympic ice sledge athlete and medalist. That is Tuesday, April 12th, guys, 11 o'clock again. Looking forward to having Greg on the program. Again, want to thank First National as our sponsor. Just incredible partners to the Canadian mortgage space, incredible partners to our group of companies. I want to thank David, the producer, and most importantly, all of you, our listeners, our viewers that are tuning in, sending in great questions. We're going to send out a ton of books. Thank you very, very much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Trev.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Gary.